Okay, now we're
Okay, so you hit the video mode. So, anyway, a few years ago, the Fort Collins guys called, and I think partially it's because I grew up in that area and I know a lot of people up there, and I've had clients up there for, 3 decades. And we had a meeting of all of the dispensary owners about what to do and what not to do and what are the risks and all this stuff. So I essentially said, the law thing is going to work its way out, but where you guys are going to get beaten is on the political level, because they got millions, billions of dollars to throw at you, and you don't have anything. So take your money, and instead of spending lawyers, because there's enough lawyers in the mix now, get a public relations firm to do public relations and get a political consultant, because that's what's going to be the decision making on this. Don't worry about that stuff. How many rings? Chimes? 2? Oh.
Go ahead.
All right. So anyway, I had a poll afterward, and there seemed to be, 2 camps evolving. One was the true believer types that were into the marijuana business because they believed in the marijuana, and the growers were sort of been there all the time growing for various reasons, and there were a lot of people working on the caretaker model. And then your dispensaries. And one of the things I talked about up there was the fact that the advertising that a lot of the dispensaries were doing was going to be detrimental, because it was like an in-your-face thing. And the marijuana law had been, the medical marijuana law had been, working in this state for quite a while. Nobody really paid attention until they started having an outbreak and doing in-your-face advertising. Anyway, nothing came of that, so I've got the same clients that I had in Fort Collins I have now, but and what happened next is they organized a referendum, municipal election, and under the local option provision, opted out of medicinal marijuana up there. So for years, ever since I've been working in the drug war area, which has been since Lyndon Johnson's been president, I've watched all of the studies, all the research, the junk science, the actual science, although there's not much actual science because there's not much research being done, because they won't give licenses for research. But I think after 4 or 5 decades, it's pretty well established that there's no long-lasting, sustainable damage like there is in getting drunk or shooting heroin or something like that. And it's probably got some beneficial uses, although they've never really been studied that much. You've got some anecdotal evidence.
Go. Just go.
Oh, that's okay.
I didn't want a cat in the shot.
Was the cat in the shot?
Yeah, the cat was in the shot. Go ahead.
Starting from where?
You start with the anecdotal evidence.
Okay, so there is anecdotal evidence, but it's not anything scientific, or not really based on a scientific model. Whatever, though, you can look at how the money is spent, where the research has been spent, where the drug money has been spent, and it's all been spent on enforcement and propaganda. So the government's been fighting a propaganda war ever since Anslinger, and they've been successful at it. And so now we get a brand new DEA administrator. The last DEA administrator essentially said he didn't give a damn about the state constitution. He was going to he was going to enforce federal law, and a local congressman, Jared Polis, wrote a letter that he published saying to his Attorney General Holder that essentially said, if you can't control your agencies under your administration, we'll get an Attorney General in there that can. And that backed it off. However, the one they got in now, it's interesting on her press release what she said. She didn't talk about marijuana being dangerous. She very cautiously said there wasn't any proof that marijuana was beneficial. Well, if that's the case, and if that's her position, then why is it still such an onerous Class 1 classification, along with heroin, opium, and stuff like that? The other thing is, since she couldn't attack the Colorado law that much, she said that, again, along the line of propaganda, I will never live in a town where there's a dispensary. Now, the biography in the paper said she'd been with the DEA for a while, and that she had grown up and gone to school in Florida, which is a deep south. And the first case I did in the deep south, a drug case, was in 1969. And obviously, listening to her, the attitude down there hasn't changed. And a statement, "I'll never do this," was a totally ideological statement, not based on anything other than prejudice. And you would expect in the 21st century that maybe prejudice would not still be with us. Although you can see how it's institutionalized in this federal sentencing law, like the difference between penalties for crack cocaine and regular cocaine. You can see as far as the enforcement discrimination, all you got to do is look at who's in prison and who's in jail, and there's all kinds of discrimination. And we're underplaying it, but it's still a real problem. The other problem now is the geriatric problem. And you've got, I've got clients, particularly organized crime clients, that I've got out of the slammer and are in walkers. Now, I don't know how much damage they can do walking around with 4 post walkers, but I suspect they can't do much of anything. And what's happening now is you've got an aging prison population with no budgeting for health care and things like that. So there's 2 choices. You let them die quietly, keeping them there, not treating them, or you turn them out on the community and let them die there. But in either event, unless there's some sort of health care, they're not going to get insurance, and they're not going to do anything other than clog up the emergency rooms. So this is the reality there with the whole drug administration.